Well, to be honest, it's been a busy week. Usual array of appointments and meetings, but then weddings and funerals and confirmations, and my mom's flying over this afternoon, so I had to make my bed. So a really busy week. That's a long way of saying, usually for the weekend homily, I read it a week or two in advance, but just because of circumstances, I wrote this homily yesterday afternoon in one go. But I think it's working out. Today it's World Day of Prayer for Vocations, and so I thought what I might do is share with you a bit of my vocation story. Not the whole thing, but just a part of it given the time constraints. So I found when I was in the seminary studying to be a Catholic priest, sometimes you kind of forget about the end game, you know? You're hanging out with the guys in his classes, and you're in community, and you forget eventually it's conducing towards making a decision as to whether or not you want to be ordained and become a Catholic priest and everything that implies. And so all of a sudden it was my final year. Oh my gosh, I got to make a decision, and I was feeling a little bit anxious and nervous about the whole thing. So I did what I would typically do in those situations. I went to see a movie by myself. Now, back then, I didn't really care what movie it was. I just chose based on showtimes. Whatever's playing at 5 o'clock at this particular movie theater, because it's a therapeutic thing, I'll see that, short of a wildly inappropriate film, right? And so that was the case here. I think it was a Sunday, around 2:30 or something. It happened to be Stars and Strollers Night. I don't know if you know what that is. Stars and Strollers Night is this recurring thing designed for young parents and their babies to allow them to have a comfortable viewing experience when they see movies in the theater. So just picture the situation, right? So bright lights, dim sound, baby changing station, young mothers and their babies, and me. And we were watching this film. I didn't know anything about it before. It was called Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Noted. Has anyone seen it before, besides that person? Okay, very few. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It's about this kid who is wimpy, who has a diary. But wait, it gets better. He has a friend, a best friend, his name is Rowley, and he's socially awkward, but good and kind and loyal. And the primary goal on the heart of the wimpy kid, he wants to become the most popular kid in school. And the thing comes to a head when these older kids who are inconvenienced because of one of the wimpy kid's failed schemes, they're upset, they're angry, they capture the wimpy kid and Rowley, and they want to punish both of them, even though Rowley is innocent, he's just along for the ride. They're in this playground, and they notice this moldy piece of cheese on the playground floor. And so they think, okay, we'll make these two guys eat this moldy piece of cheese. Now, this harkens back to this scene early in the film when they talk about this thing called the cheese touch. This is going somewhere. So, according to urban legend, there was this foreign exchange student who accidentally touched the piece of cheese on the playground floor, as a result of which she was socially ostracized and banished to the country from whence he came. So, just think it through, right? So, if this guy is banished and socially ostracized because he touched the cheese, what's going to happen to these two guys once they eat the cheese, right? And so they make Rowley go first. So he picks up the cheese, he takes a bite of the cheese, at which point the recess bell goes off, and all the kids from the school, they come out, and this mob mentality forms, and so they're surrounding the kids, and this little girl is pointing at Rowley, and he's still holding the cheese with this big bite taken out of it. And then the camera turns to Rowley, and his lip is trembling, and he's so sad, and he's so scared, because he knows in the very next moment, I'm going to be hated and rejected forever. At which point, the wimpy kid steps in. And he says, I eat the cheese. And so they hate him, but his friend is spared. And that's the end of the film. So the movie ends, the lights come up, and me and the babies, we're bawling our eyes out. Because all of a sudden it just hit me like a flash, Rowley's emblematic of the Lord, right? So good, so lovable, the embodiment of love, and yet, ironically, so unloved. People just don't care. We talk all the time about putting God first in all things, but in reality, the real question is, do we actually care in the least? Just think it through, what do we do for the Lord? We're nice, we're kind, go to Mass, say prayers. Great. Whereas in contrast, you look at the gospel, right? So what do you hear up and down the gospel? I am the good shepherd who lays down his life for his sheep. If you want to become my disciple, you must take up your cross, deny yourself, and follow me. Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground, it remains a single grain, but if it dies, it bears an abundance of fruit. You hear stuff up and down the gospel, and yet you go out there in the world and you forget. We forget, and more to the point, I forgot. I was in seminary formation for like 6 years. How could I not know this? Like in retrospect, I was kind of hedging my bets. Lord, you got to guarantee that if I do this thing, which I know you want me to do, I will be happy, I'll feel affirmed on my being, I won't suffer too much. If you don't guarantee that ahead of time, I won't do this thing that you want me to do. And here's the gross part about it. I'll call it discernment. I'll say I'm not sure. Whereas in reality, I'm afraid. I lack trust. I lack generosity. I lack love. I do not love you, and that's the truth. Right? Here's how you're supposed to discern. You shut out the noise out there and the noise in your heart. And you allow the Lord to ask you the question of all questions. Do you love me? It's a weighty thing. Do you love me? And if you answer yes, the response then in turn is some variation of feed my lambs, tend my sheep, feed my sheep. In other words, if you love me, and I know that you do this thing that I want you to do. Share in the one true cross of salvation in this particular way. It might be scary from the outside, but if you do this thing, in this you will find purpose and meaning, and this thing is actually your vocation. And that's a particular way in which I call you to change the world. Okay, one final point just to kind of close off the story. So, shortly after I saw this film, I was talking to this guy, and we were introduced to each other through a faculty member at the seminary. In retrospect, I'm not sure if he should have done this, but it helped. Right? So basically, this guy, he had mystical abilities. And whether you agree he had supernatural powers, he was touching on something which was real and true. So basically, his ability, he could read souls. So if I met you, and then I met him, without having met you, he could say things about you that you have no right of knowing these things. And if he talks to you face to face, then all bets are off. So he's talking to me. He's looking at me and he's like, you know what? You're afraid. And you're afraid of two things. You're afraid that if you get ordained, you won't last. And you won't endure. And you're afraid that it'll be too much. And you'll give up. And you'll leave in disgrace and shame. And you're also afraid that if you get ordained, you'll be a terrible priest. And I was like, I don't know how you know that, man. But that is 100% true. Like exactly the way he phrased it. To which he said, okay, that's a lie. The truth of the matter is, when you get ordained, you will last. And you will endure. And you will be a very good priest. And because of Christ working through your priesthood, many, many people will not go to hell.